Our opening reading is entitled Gentleness in Living. It's by Richard Gilbert, Reverend Richard Gilbert. Be gentle with one another. It is a cry from the lives of people, battered by thoughtless words and brutal deeds. It comes from the lips of those who speak them and the lives of those who do them. Who of us can look inside one another and know what is there of hope or hurt, or promise and pain? Who can know from what far places each has come, or to what far places each may hope to go? Our lives are like fragile eggs. They crack, and the substance escapes. Handle with care. Handle with exceedingly tender care for all human beings within, human beings as vulnerable as we are, who feel as we feel, who hurt as we hurt. Life is too transient to be cruel with one another. It is too short for thoughtlessness, too brief for hurting. Life is long enough for caring. It is lasting long enough for sharing, precious enough for love. Be gentle with one another. Our second reading will be read by our speaker. Richard, unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I am reading from Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1 through 6. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. By faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found because God had translated him. For before his translation, he had this testimony, that he pleased God. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is the rewarder of them that diligently seek him.
Let us officially now welcome our speaker, Richard Garey. The title of his talk is Certainty and Faith.
Good morning, everyone. We have had the most amazing year of my entire life, 2020. What about you? Absolutely shattering of everything most of us had anticipated the year would be. And then what a month January has been. Am I right? What a month. And here we are at the beginning of a new year. And like many of you, I sometimes at the beginning of a year go back and reminisce, go back, think about what other challenging times I have had in my life. And of course, I've lived through some challenging times, particularly when I was in high school and in college. I attended a small religious sponsored school in North Carolina. That school centered on spiritual life. And it was every day. We had religion classes, we had chapels, assemblies, special religious speakers. In fact, twice a year, we had a whole week called a week of spiritual emphasis with meetings every day and then services on weekend. So spiritual life was kind of central. Now, the wonderful thing about that school, however, very high academics. It's interesting, my entire class, when we went away to university, got into advanced freshman English. Didn't have to do grammar at all. Started writing right away. So I'm very thankful for that background in so many different ways, but it has also haunted me. If you will go back with me and remember, I want to share some things from 1964 when I walked down the aisle and got my high school diploma. The average cost of a new home was $13,050. Anyone interested? Roll back those prices. The average income per year was $6,000 in the United States. Gas, and I remember this very well because I had a Volkswagen and I could fill it up for $3, 30 cents a gallon. Loaf of bread was 21 cents. A new car, brand new car, was $3,500. Postage, 5 cents. Average monthly rent. Now, this is interesting because many of my classmates went out that summer and rented apartments, and some of them even rented houses. Do you realize our kids can't do that today very often? Rent is too expensive. But rent in 1964, the average was $115 a month. Many houses were $100 a month. Times have certainly changed, and here's another thing from those days. The entire world had 3.3 billion people. Today, over 7 billion. By the way, you Cardinals fans out there, St. Louis won the World Series. How sweet it is. Vietnam was heating up. Racial tension was growing, however, and the Beatles played Ed Sullivan. 1964. As Charles Dickens wrote in Tale of Two Cities, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. We had everything before us as a graduating class, and we had nothing before us. Two of my classmates were killed in Vietnam. Some of us did not survive the 60s. And this school that I had attended, because of the spiritual emphasis, we became spiritual snobs. Does that shock you? We thought we were on the inside track. If we were asked if there's a God, we immediately said, why, certainly. Uh, of course, there is a God. No question. If we had been asked if we believed in a creator God, we would say God created the earth, and anyone who believes otherwise is an idiot. We thought we knew everything. We were brash, self assured, especially in religious issues. We were the chosen people. Let me ask you folks, does that sound like 2020? Do we have the same spiritual arrogance around us today? In short, I like to quote one of my favorite poets, T.S. Eliot, a St. Louis boy. We should celebrate him more, don't you think, in this area? Absolutely one of the greats. Washington University. Eliot penned these words, certain of uncertain certainties. We were certain of uncertain certainties. Our discussions when I was a senior were often about how wrong others were and how right we were. Sometimes our beliefs were not treated as beliefs at all. They were treated as facts. And friends, this morning I'm going to suggest, and I'm doing this with a great deal of spiritual humility. I'm not a minister. I'm not a religious expert. But it seems to me that one of our greatest dangers today, as Christians and even in the secular world, is that we confuse facts and opinions. And we treat opinions as facts. And facts are slippery, aren't they? Now, you see, we as seniors in 1964, we were in a very high academic school, and we should not have made that mistake, because in our other classes, we were taught that a fact is something that is proved or provable. Fact. And so that God created the world, let me ask you, can we prove it? Is there a God? Do we have a yardstick that can do that? What kind of measurement can we possibly use for some of the great questions of life itself? Is there a God? Is there a creator? Is there intelligent design in this universe? How do you measure it? Then, if that is true, how can we say that it is a fact? We learned in our other classes about this dichotomy. We had no problem with it in chemistry or physics or in geometry. We had to prove the thesis. But we seemed untroubled when it came to measuring God. And as that hubris, which we as young people were walking around exhibiting, is it still with us today? We were going to do great things. We were going to be happier, healthier, and richer than our parents. We were the golden children. We were the chosen generation. And then after graduation, after other schools, after many other things, life showed up. We ran into life. And after questions arose, we were not as certain certainties. Life gave us great times, make no mistake about that, and wonderful experiences. And I and many of my classmates have been able to do things we never, ever imagined that we would be able to do. Some of us got married and held babies in our arms. Some got advanced degrees, good jobs. Some became professionals, medical doctors, lawyers. But we really and truly were not ready for the disasters. We were not ready for the tsunamis that were going to hit, the hurricanes that were going to come into our lives, the floods, the tornadoes of life. We enjoyed some success, and then one day, every single one of us crashed and burned. Divorce, bankruptcy, it came in various forms, health scares, war. Some of us died. Some of us had medical emergencies. In short, life kicked us all in the teeth. And one time or another, we became much less certain. I'll give you an example. I have a close friend who attended the same kind of school. He's a wonderful man, kindest, most generous person I know. But life hit him so hard. He had the same kind of attitude when he was young. And then suicides close to him, divorces with an S, a son who overdosed. I sat with John, which is not his real name, but I sat with him in a funeral home after his son, the joy and pride of his life, overdosed and died. Hardest thing I have ever had to do. I did not know what to say. I just said, I'm here for you. The funeral of his son, because after everything had exploded in his life, even after his younger years as a believer, by this time, he was an agnostic. And as we sat in that funeral home, he was saying goodbye to a son he did not think he would ever see again. Lord, I believe. Help thou mine unbelief. Mark 9:24. When I speak with my friend today, I do not claim to know everything, but that's okay. I listen, I weigh the evidence, I listen to his arguments, and I make choices. My grandfather many years ago said, life is about choice. A million choices that you make every day, some of them minor, some of them major, but it's about choice. I now understand that belief is a choice. Faith is a choice we make. We look at the evidence, but we choose who we're going to believe or what we're going to believe. And if we really think about it, what we have gone through in our country and the horrible things we have seen this month has been about belief, about who and what we choose to believe in. It does matter. Several years ago, my wife and I went through a wonderful experience. As an actor, I've had all kinds of roles over the years, but I decided by request in the beginning, but then I fell in love with the project to perform the Gospel of Mark. The whole book has performance. And so I had to spend a lot of time with the gospel. And the Gospel of Mark is really our gospel. I don't know if that has ever occurred to you, but Mark was written for the Romans that we so much emulate. A Roman would not, like a Jew, come up to you and say, what's the philosophical basis of this? A Roman, like an American, would say, what's he done? Tell me about this man in action. And that's what the Gospel of Mark is. It shows you Jesus of Nazareth as he did his ministry. And so as we did that, and as Patricia participated in that because I was doing it, we fell in love with this guy, this Jesus. We saw him in a totally new light because I'm having to go back and wrestle with that, look at it, figure it out what he's doing and why things happened the way they did, and to be able to perform it. And so this changed us. It certainly changed me. And if this story is true, as it is told in this book called the Bible, if that is true, what a wonderful being God is. I sat in a class once at a university, and the professor said, here's the great question of life. Are we alone in the universe? And the second part of that question is, if we are not alone, what is that something like? Is that thing that makes us not alone the most terrifying thing in the universe, or is it good? And the Bible tells us it is good. And it puts it this way: he that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. John 4:8. I can't prove it, but I believe it. I have evidence. You have evidence. We all have evidence, but we can't prove it. We don't have a yardstick. We don't have a measurement. And we have evidence in our lives. We see it in each other. We see it in generosity and love and unselfishness. We see it right now in the people in hospitals across this country who have been walking in there every day thinking they're going to get this plague, but working for other people, there for their patients, going into the belly of the beast for us. We see it, we have evidence, but we can't prove it. Like the questions presented to me when I was a senior, is there a God? I would say yes. And today, my honest answer is I don't know, but I choose to believe it. Did God create this universe we live in? I can't prove it. I don't know. Unlike some of you listening today who think I was with Moses when he wrote Genesis, I was not. I say that because I know I have some friends on here today from all over the country. And a few years ago, folks, I discovered that I'm older than Israel. I was born in 1946. The country of Israel was founded in 1948. I literally am older than Israel. My grandchildren go, "Oh, wow, Granddaddy." I like to share those little things with my grandchildren. If you ask me about the trouble and tragedy and horror of life we see on this planet every day, I choose to believe that good will win over evil. And notice it's a choice. We don't know, but we choose. We choose who we're going to march with. We don't have a choice about marching, but we choose who we're going to march with. We choose under whose banner we're going to campaign. And I choose the banner of love. Perhaps God has allowed it to roll out this way. Perhaps if he laid it all out and it was absolutely clear who and what he was, that somehow we wouldn't get it. Perhaps God wants some ambiguity. Perhaps he always wanted us to have faith and not certainty. Perhaps he wants us to trust him. Perhaps he wants us to step out over the abyss with nothing to hold us up. Perhaps It is a call, and that call is not a sure thing. Perhaps it's always been about faith. Back then in 1964, I was certain of certain certainties. Now I often cannot see the path ahead. I often cannot prove my beliefs beyond a shadow of a doubt. But by faith, I choose my side. Like Peter in the Sea of Galilee, by faith, I step out, and God allows me to walk on water. Thank you, folks, for being with me this morning.